end of the year, people are like, still no idea, and they go, networking didn't work. So turn up is the key one. Please turn up, please, for the love of God, turn up. Number 2, get involved. So if you're going to network, get on the team. Become more than just a 90-minute, 60-minute member. Get on the team, run a meeting, be part of the management of a meeting, get on the social media trail, just get involved, because every time you stand up in front of a room of people, they see you. So it raises your profile, be it good or be it bad. So, you know, my particular style is PC and non-offensive. And obviously everyone loves that. So, but that's my choice. But people know me and people remember me, you know. So get involved, get there, run some meetings. And number 3 is take part and do it properly. So when you're there, get involved. Don't stand in a corner. Don't stand with a coffee with your back to the wall. Talk to people. Network. The open networking part of the meeting before we sit down is probably the most important part. When you're sat here, that's it. You're stopped. You're locked. You can't. You know. You can't talk. But actually, that tea and coffee is the time when you get to talk to people about your week, or to bash some ideas around. Because don't forget, if you've had a crap week, someone else has. And at the end of that conversation, you could have sorted out that problem and be like, oh, okay, not just me then. I feel a lot better because I spoke to John, Sue, Sarah, whatever. So if you're going to go to a networking meeting, don't be late. Don't swan in just a second before it starts. Give yourself a nice half an hour to talk, to network, to open network, to meet people and have a tea and coffee. So those are, I think, my 3 tips. But a lot of that doesn't happen. A lot of it doesn't happen. And then inevitably, they're gone. And actually, as I said, it's always their fault. People say, oh yeah, BMI is not right for me, EMO is not right for me. All it is 3 letters in a room of people. So nothing to do with the company, it's nothing to do with the brand, it's nothing to do with the pens or the logo, it's you. So it's just a room of people. Make it work, or don't, but don't complain about it.
Interesting. I mean, it's not, I know we had this presentation last week from Matt, and feedback I had, which I shared with you loosely, that Matt was talking about what it takes to the mistakes you make if you're an exhibitor. Again, I don't want to particularly about the showcase, but it was really forthright, and we will be sending that video out to all 2 or 3, what will be 3 groups next week as well. I think sometimes having someone who tells it as it is, certainly from their own personal point of view, is really useful. And I think if we, you know, networking face to face, if you're not a group leader, I think there is this gentle dance where you're getting to know somebody. So 4 or 5 years ago, again, before I set up the expo, somebody really well regarded who I really looked up to, she was a leader in events actually, and I still am in contact with her. She said, took me aback a little bit, she said, why are you doing a larger networking event like an expo? Isn't everyone using LinkedIn? Of course, well, we are. But that was almost like a challenge to me. I thought, no, we're missing this human contact. Yeah. I walked over, I came over to interrupt a conversation with Joe, who's a member, and David, member, and Sarah there as well, and I was waiting to chip in with an opportunity for upsell sort of thing. And I was just listening to this conversation. God, there's people, it's a really good 40-second presentation, not saying anybody else's wasn't, and you're already connecting with notable members, or founder members indeed, with David in the room, thinking, wow, there is a correlation between what appears to be a well thought out, well rehearsed 40-seconder and a connection which is made with 2 influencers, in my opinion, beyond the Southwest community. So I thought, wow, there is a correlation between a good presentation. So even though you probably can't tell it from my particular 1-minuters, you know, I'm a trained presenter, and I've trained other people over the years as well. But not everyone's got that in them, and I found that, I think it was Stephen Tasker, a founder member of EVO, who left a year ago after 3 years of good standing. He was he wouldn't mind us saying this, is that right? Can you tell us a story about Steve?
So Steve is an accountant, and he joined 4N 10 years ago, whatever. And he was sat in the corner of the room, and I looked at him, and he was white as a sheet. And he was so terrified of networking. And I spoke to him after, he said, I very nearly walked out. And he stood up and he forgot his name. He said, good morning, yeah. And he was petrified of talking. And then 6 months later, brilliant presenter, standing at the front, talking, changing. And it was incredible how he used networking as a way to improve his public speaking and to sort out his confidence. So networking's not just business in the room, it's using it as business development, public speaking, training or whatever. It's one of the cheapest training courses you'll ever have. But Steve's a changed man, and it was incredible. But to go from not even knowing your name to presenting in front of a room, I think he's staggering. So
really, really impressive. He spoke twice actually to the groups over the years, and it was fact packed. It was interesting. It was had an audio visual element which was strong. he redesigned his brand, I think, in line with his conference. Yeah. He's an FD of real note. He supports businesses of all sizes as a kind of a fly-in or on retainer financial director, which is no mean feat. It was years of experience. He's a gentleman of a certain age, I would say as well. And amazing later in his professional life to have developed that skill set from networking. So as Matt alluded to, we've probably got another 3 or 4 minutes left before maybe a chance to a couple of questions. But I would say that one of the other benefits about networking is obviously that referral scheme. With Evo, we don't publicly announce it. It's up to the members if they say, oh, I met. I've certainly met some incredible people along the way, and I rarely do the one-to-ones. It's not because I don't want to, I'm often taking photographs. It makes a little montage which I send to the guests and members afterwards. But I would say that a couple of one-to-ones I had last year led to some extraordinary business and life-changing stuff for my small company, my other small company. Adam, who's a member of Reed, I literally didn't earn from Adam, and we got to know each other after a one-to-one. We had a few conversations. He pitched the sponsorship of my other company, a significant amount of money, to 7 individual directors within a global organisation, and announced a few weeks ago that he was going to sponsor my other company. So it was a if you like, I hate to use sort of gambling parlance, but it was like the long game. I didn't think for a second this would ever come to pass with so many decision makers. But because Adam and I got to know each other, and now I've seen that he's an upright chap, and he's giving to the group as well as gaining as well. That's the 4N parts, isn't it? Exactly, BNI part. BNI. Whoops, it got it all mixed up again. So it really does work. So my tip, I suppose, we're offering some advice, would be do not just from a commercial point of view, but you do turn up, as he says, but also continue conversations afterwards as well. If you've had a one-to-one with somebody, then be sure to say, look, it's really good to have a one-to-one. And maybe also take advantage of whichever networking group you're in. There's usually an antechamber somewhere, a bar which is opening up soon. After Evo, pretty much straight away, the bar over there, just across the way, is open. And often not, especially with the larger meetings, we find 5 or 6 members having coffees for another couple of hours. It's good for the venue, it's good for us, and it's good for yourselves if you continue those one-to-ones. And my other tip would be, if you do have your 2 one-to-ones, it's a busy meeting, you can't meet with everyone, then certainly take advantage of the contact sheet, which we send out afterwards. Everybody who signs from the GDPR point of view, usually it's one person per meeting who doesn't particularly want their name or their email shared. But don't send a group email to that. It's not permitted. The consent is given that you can individually message people. So just be aware that you have got that contact sheet, and it will pop into your mailbox today or tomorrow. So do follow up with those, particularly visiting guests who you didn't meet with. And just remember that human contact. I really believe that. I'm a huge fan of evolutionary biology. I've been studying it as an amateur for years now, and ethology as well, and the animal kingdom and how it relates to humans' behaviour, and to a degree business psychology as well. But the thing I find is the most consistent thing of all when it comes to business networking, and why there will always be, doesn't matter whether we become brains in jars communicating through the ether, I really believe that all of us here in this room, having heard your stories, a little bit about your journey, a little about your personal preferences, through the sort of the stories about the clothes, I believe that we're all artisans. I lecture at UWE on the nature of artisanship and how that leads to modern entrepreneurship. We're all entrepreneurs in a way, we're all taking risks, we always have multiple opportunities, we choose to focus in on something. Life, if I may finish on a point.
You may.
I posit in my university lectures that life was unspeakably difficult and horrible, and furthermore, utterly boring up until very, very recently. In recorded history as we know it, if we believe the history books, unless you live in a small urban, sort of rural community where there was a sense of community and spirit, you did work together, you did fashion your own products and then take them to market. In general, we've lost that. But I also believe we're living in a twilight period of human history where life isn't boring. We can communicate with loved ones and friends from anywhere in the world. There's an extraordinary shift since the mid-1990s with the interweb, that life and connecting with people is what we are, in terms of coming from chimps and bonobos. We are very, very much the social creature of this planet, and connecting and enlarging brains over the last few 100,000 years is all about our ability to communicate with others. So I think networking, in its own social element, is critical. I don't think you'll ever find it disappearing. And as life becomes more interesting and less boring, if you're tilling the land as a serf in the turn of the last millennium, or living in a country where there's abject poverty. I think we're living in a golden era right now. It's particularly in the West. There's all sorts of challenges and difficulties, but the ability to connect with each other is one of the great joys, and I hope that's never going to be lost with the advent and continued march of technology. So do celebrate those personal connections. Do meet. Do look someone in the eye, because you're much more likely to buy from somebody you've met in that one-to-one scenario, but also in a group of other human beings. We run around in tribes generally 125, and in general, most people's Facebooks, believe it or not, are about 125 people on that list as well in terms of connected friends. It's fascinating stuff. So just to summarise, Matt says, turn up on time. He says, do not only turn up on time, but be present. Be present. We've also talked about maybe giving a bit of thought, if you're not the most confident of public speakers, give it a bit of thought about your 40 seconds or 1 minute and see how long that, if you can be adaptive on the day. Sometimes we change the timings, we don't do it deliberately to throw you off, but just the number of people in the room means we have to shorten it. And then the last couple of things from my side of it is that do remember that networking isn't going to die off, it is important. Referrals and giving and gaining, as B and I say, is also very, very important. And also that I believe that we're living in a golden era, not necessarily the end, not a twilight, but we're living in a golden era where we can choose to connect digitally, we can reach out to more people around the world through technology, but don't forget that also that human contact, that looking in the eye, is something which is distinguishing us from the rest of the animal kingdom and celebrating us as human beings, and it's how we progressed as a civilization, that one-to-one, that human contact, and basically networking. That is why we are where we are today in 2019. So continue to network, be there, be present, and experiment with other groups as well. There's lots of them out there. So that's our thing. Have we got time for a question?
No.